And now we continue with part 3 of Conrad's story, entitled The Sun. When do you come into this picture? When are you born?
I'm born 59, middle of 3 boys. My older brother, 57.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of miscarriages before that. They were trying very hard to have kids.
Okay.
And I think perhaps on a schedule because I have the same birthday as my older brother. Which is some kind of insane family planning.
Yeah.
And ruined my relationship with Lucas for many years. He's 2 years old and suddenly this kid shows up on his birthday.
Yeah.
Not so cool.
Yeah.
But we're friends now.
That's good.
Yeah.
You're born in Boston.
In Cambridge. There's a real pain. Mount Auburn Hospital.
So when do you realize that you're coming from this unbelievable story?
That's that maybe 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed so normal that we had all this art on the walls, that my father would disappear into his studio. And from the time I was 5, we were in this big old Victorian house. And he had what had been the servants' quarters on the 3rd floor to himself.
Okay.
And he would go up there and he would close the door and go to work. I thought it was nothing really remarkable until later.
Okay. How long later?
I keep trying to figure that out myself. When we were kids, he tried to teach us German, and he gave up because we made fun of the sounds. Sounded like spitting. And he didn't try that hard. He was still really angry at Germany.
Okay. But now okay. You're growing up in an affluent area.
Yeah.
Your father is working for Harvard and he's teaching at the Boston Art School.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother is
perpetually working on her PhD and Henry James.
What was her? What did she study?
English.
Really?
Yeah.
Literature.
English literature. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It was a very closed environment. My mother wasn't on a plane until 1981.
Mm-hmm.
They never went really anywhere except between their summer house and their winter house.
Okay.
And that was a trip of 71 miles, and we used to have to break it with lunch at Howard Johnson's because it was too far. Massachusetts is kind of small. But they were living a small life. He had already lived.
Yeah.
So he didn't need to do any more.
Did you go to private schools?
I did. There was educational upheaval in public schools at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Forced busing to achieve racial integration at the high school level.
So you're growing up in a segregated... What year is this again?
I start school in 64.
Okay.
And I graduate high school in 77.
So Brown versus Board of Education is 1954.
Yes.
Schools aren't integrated until...
there was integration and then there was integration.
Yeah.
And the Athens of America, which is what Boston has been called, was not so much the Athens of America. And I don't know what the Supreme Court case is, but forced busing to achieve racial integration was a political theory propounded by African Americans as they gained political power. And the goal was not to get black kids into white schools. It was to get white kids into black schools. Mm-hmm. So they put some resources in there. And nobody learned anything from 74 to 76 in a public school in Boston. Okay. It was all about political struggle and bombings and this, that, and the other. But my mother was a snob, and wanted the best education possible for us, and I'm very grateful. My high school was an educational experiment by the black sheep of the Merrill family of Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith. So he had a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
There were 123 kids over 4 grades. I had 23 kids in my graduating class. I never had a class with more than 8 students. My high school was the hardest education I ever did. And I went to private college and then public grad school and got my MFA.
Okay.
And I never worked harder than I did in high school.
Wow.
And socially, my grade school education was prima. A school called Buckingham, later Buckingham, Brown and Nichols.
Did your parents participate in marches?
Yeah, my mother marched against the war, and my father grew his beard, said he would never shave again until the war ended. And
But during civil rights?
there wasn't that much marching for civil rights in Massachusetts. We thought it was done.
Okay.
It was anti-war through most of my childhood.
Right. For a reason.
Yes.
As we're discovering right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you went to an elitist private boarding school?
Not boarding, only day.
Okay, so
day
you
school.
came home. Okay.
Yeah, home every day.
When did you decide that you wanted to become an actor?
In 2nd grade, first time I set foot on stage.
Really?
Yeah. I realized I was home from that moment on. I didn't, go out and become a child actor or anything like that.
Right.
I only had the opportunity in schools. But if anyone asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, I told them I was going to be an actor.
Okay. Where do you think that came from? Was it a school?
I am genetically predisposed. I'm comfortable on stage. I don't feel the danger. I have a good voice.
Uh-huh.
And I have some serious skill that I largely taught myself. Every time I've had an acting class, it made sense to me. I was already doing this stuff before I got to the class.
Okay.
It was very natural. And if I were to advise a person like me,
Uh-huh.
if I had known that they existed, I would have gone to a conservatory when I went to college, not to a liberal arts. What I needed to learn was how to get the work, not how to do the work.
Okay.
And so I wasted time in college screwing around with Spanish and trying to learn physics.
Where did you go to college?
McAllister College, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay.
Is
it known for its theater?
What it had was one of 5 Eisenhower stages in the country.
Okay.
He was a theater designer, and the theater was hydraulic. If you were in a straight proscenium theater, the seats were like this, but they could rise and swing out, and then you could be in a thrust environment.
Okay.
Or they could build bleachers behind the proscenium, and you'd be in the round environment.
Okay.
But it was a liberal arts school, and I ended up there because my older brother had applied there, and the literature was lying around the house.
Okay.
And I wanted to get out of
Cambridge,
Massachusetts, and it was halfway across the country.
Okay. Yeah, it is like you're moving to the Midwest.
Yeah, I never really went home again except for weekends.
Okay. So you got your undergraduate in theater.
And education, certified to teach.
Okay. What types of performances did you do at college?
In college, did whatever was going on, Shakespeare, Moliere, whatever was in musicals, although I don't sing.
Can you sing? I was going to ask you. Okay.
No, I'm not a triple threat. I'm a single threat.
Okay.
Act some. Can't dance, can't sing.
Yeah.
This was my father's insistence that I get a liberal arts education.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really understand what that meant, but I had a lot of fun, a lot of good friends, and transitioned from that into community theater in Minnesota, working for free, where I met my first wife, and she wanted to teach, so we decided to go to grad school.
Okay.
And I discovered that was a gold mine. They were looking for talented actors. I had offers from 23 schools.
Fantastic.
We went where they would take us both. I went to Michigan State in Lansing. We're there for 3 years, and then she got a job in Washington, and I followed her and landed in the middle of a regional theater movement that was just beginning to explode.
What year is this?
This is, we got out of school in 87.
Okay. So that's when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 87, you're entering D.C.?
Yeah. And I started in dinner theater and then worked my way up to the big theaters in town. And by the time I quit, I wasn't auditioning anymore. I had work lined up 6 to 9 months in advance. Was living in a nice house in the suburb with my wife and my dog.
Fantastic.
In an existence that was not supposed to be possible. But we got to a point, she quit her lifetime job in a political protest over the firing of one of her friends, and got bored with Washington. And I was doing plays just because I was being asked to do plays rather than because I wanted to do them.
Okay.
I was burned out. And after my mother died and my father was almost dying, she thought, why don't we move to the place where they had their summer home? And that seemed like an interesting change to me and a way to break out of my rut because there's no theater up there.
In Massachusetts?
Yeah, there are 2 theaters in Providence and some theaters in Boston. But, so we bought a house in the country and we're living there for 5 years until all this Bauhaus stuff came up and then met Marie Louisa and turned everything upside down. It went from a safe, secure environment to spending half my day not knowing what the fuck is going on. Pardon my French.
That's okay.
I get 3 sentences in at the Revy, and then I'm done. The Frohes Wochenende is about the end of the line for me. And this will change.
Yeah. But, okay, so how many years did you live in D.C.?
32, 33.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you a playwright as well?
No.
Just a stage actor?
I am labor.
Okay.
I'm not management. I don't direct. I don't create. I perform as directed.
What play did you work in that you liked the best? Like what kind of genre are you?
Anything going, but my favorite by far is a play called Amadeus.
Okay.
Peter Schaffer.
Okay.
Playing Salieri.
So would these plays run like Broadway shows? They'd run like years and years and years?
No. It's each theater has a season of, say, 5 or 6 plays.
Okay.
You rehearse 5 weeks, perform 9 weeks, sometimes, if it's really lucky, 22 weeks.
Okay.
That's the longest run I ever had.
But you had work lined up months and months and months. So like you were a very sought
I had achieved
after.
whole employment, full-time employment.
Okay.
And even sweeter than that, I was also an employee of the Library of Congress, recording audiobooks.
Okay.
And choosing which ones I wanted to do too.
Okay. So are writers and directors seeking you out?
Yes,
That's
there
nice.
were, and producing organizations
Okay.
would force people to take me in their plays if they wanted me there.
Nice.
And it's not to say there wasn't any struggle, but a competent actor in that time couldn't help but be employed.
Okay. You never did any television,
Never.
any movie, any commercial?
The only actor in Washington who was never on Homicide. which was the first big, also Wired was filmed in Baltimore too.
Okay.
Never, not once. And that was circumstance. I was either too busy to go to the auditions or couldn't take the assignment if I got it because I was busy.
Okay.
And when I was not busy, I went to the Library of Congress.
Okay.
It was a sweet setup.
So when you moved back home to Massachusetts, you bought a house in the country.
Mm-hmm.
What were your plans at that time?
At that time, there was hope and discussion of a one-man show here in conjunction with the 100th anniversary.
Okay.
So I spent 2.5 years off and on working on this. But the money man for the project died. His wife had no interest. And the Bauhaus itself decided that the focus was going to be looking forward and not back. And so a memory play of my grandfather based on his writings and so on held less interest to the community.
But it's still in the works.
No, I put it in the back.
You bagged it.
I bagged it. The research is still there and sort of partial first draft. Okay. But I also discovered that I'm not really cut out to do this work.
Okay.
And my wife was a writer. She was doing some of it, but then it was filtered by her feelings about what a drama should be and so on. So there was some conflict.
That would be interesting. And I'm sure perhaps you're still thinking about...
yeah, they talk about performance opportunities here, but Bauhaus talks a lot about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And concrete action is sometimes harder to achieve.
Okay.
Right now, everybody is sort of walking around on eggshells because of the new director and wanting to know which way she wants to take everything.
Okay.
And outsiders are sniping at her already. Politics everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But my first sort of public appearance from the Bauhaus will be at Christmas time. They have in the museum these I don't even know what the formal name is for them. These discussions or talks once or twice a month, and I'm going to do one about a Christmas painting of my father's.
Okay.
And that'll be sort of the first. The language barrier makes things difficult right now. But there is hope to be involved in my chosen profession over there.
Okay.
And not just my wishes, it's things that they bring up. Sir Ian McKellen developed a one-man show of Shakespeare that he used to help raise money for theaters. And
okay.
I have a hope to do that someday. But again, you'd have to find an audience that would accept an evening of English.
Which you can find that here.
Increasingly so. Yeah, I realize that.
There's no doubt about that.
It's much different than when I first came here.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that when your mother passed away, you and your father became that gave you the opportunity to become closer.
Yes, to not be filtered by my mother.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, if you want to?
Yeah, sure. There's no problem with that. Part of it was her wanting to protect my little brother, and so everything was sort of skewed around what does Charles think and what does Charles want. But she controlled my father in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. When I was a teenager, he told me never to tell him anything that I didn't want my mother to hear, because he told my mother everything.
Okay.
But then, say 7 to 10 years later, she goes out to lunch one day, and he brings me up to the studio and hands me 2 portraits of his first wife and tells me to take them because they'll be destroyed when he dies. And I think that he told her they were already destroyed.
Right.
And this kind of deception, acting as lying, I have no problem with it, but it was shocking coming from him. And after she died, supposedly all the pictures of her had been destroyed, photos.
Did you hide them somewhere in the house?
Well, they were beyond coming to visit me, so I could just have them in my house, but I didn't display them.
Oh, so you were already out of the house by then?
Yeah, I was home for a visit.
Okay.
And he tied them together face to face, and I put them in the trunk of my car and drove them away 2 days later. And now, by force majeure, they are mine, and someday will be exhibited. They were very popular on Insta when I put them up.
Perfect. Was it... I mean, you're coming from such a interesting background. Like, I would assume there would be an open-mindedness about previous relationships. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about this particular time period, isn't it?
But they were strange people. My father went along with the party line established by my mother. My mother hated my first wife. She thought that an actor needed to be alone and lonely and struggling to.
Why is that?
Well, they were very strong women. And my wife was Taurus. And, we were children when we married, at 23. Mm-hmm. And I was still afraid of them. I didn't tell them until the night before we got married we were getting married. So the whole thing started a little strange. But it was tough. In our early days, I had a life-threatening illness in the early days of our marriage, and she was the filter between my family and myself. And that put us in an artificial contact that lasted for several years.
Okay.
And it helped keep the marriage going for the 30 years.
Did they come and see you in Washington?
Yeah, and when there was an important play, they would come down until the early or mid-'90s. My mother fought cancer for 7 years. Mm-hmm. Finally died in 99. So it was difficult to travel, and my father hated to travel anyway.
Okay.
But they saw me on stage 4, maybe 5 times.
Okay. Did they like your work?
I think so.
That's good.
When I was in 8th grade, I played Petruchio for the first time. And my father had come to see nothing in grade school and such. And he came to see that. And I said, why did you wait so long? And he said, well, I knew you were going to be all right. Okay. So I didn't need to worry about you. And my mother thought some of the things I did were frivolous, but I think she was proud. That those kind of adjectives didn't come up much in this family. There was approval of my life choice to be an actor. I was entering the family business. Yeah. And I was really lucky that I was not in competition with anyone. Mm-hmm. When Lux was trying to interest people in his art, people kept coming back to the photographs. And he became more famous for his early photography than for his painting. And this caused more trouble between him and his brother, because his brother had been the photographer. And now suddenly here is Lux.
Is it just petty, jealousies? Why wouldn't siblings be supportive of their talents?
Well, there's complicated issues.
Yeah. Because, again, normal people don't have these types of experiences, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
Where there's buildings named after them, like books written about them. You keep saying like, well, there's one book came out last year, 2 years. I mean, there's always. I mean, this is a part of your life, and this is not a part of like 99% of the population.
Yeah, I have come to see it as very normal.
Right. So I couldn't imagine like the competition within, these siblings that are striving to be like recognized globally. It is like a celebrity lifestyle in a sense.
Yes, but it opens doors.
Yeah.
I achieved my resident alien status because Feininger comes back to Dessau.
Right.
When I was trying to get this stupid driver's license, the eye test guy finds out I'm Feininger. He refuses to charge me.
Yeah.
This is cool. You sign in at a hotel and people know who you are in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Never in the U.S.
Right.
People in the know would have a poster of his or whatever, especially popular on college campuses, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But if there is a feeling of celebrity, it's over here.
Okay.
But if I
but again,
went into the Revy in Curtin and said, I'm Feininger, people go, huh?
Again, like, your grandfather has work in the MoMA. Mm-hmm. And other various national art galleries in America.
Yeah.
Your father also has significant works in museums across the world, right? I assume at this point.
Yes.
I mean,
sometimes they're in storage, but yeah, they'd have them.
I mean, I could walk through the Smithsonian probably and find a piece from your family.
You could find a room in the.
See, I feel embarrassed for even saying a piece.
No, there's some very knowledgeable art collectors have made the art in Washington, in the modern wing.
Yeah.
But my father's stuff is there, but it's in storage, and you're more likely to see one of his photos.
Okay. Where does this leave you with this legacy?
Leaves me very proud, super proud.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, financially protected.
Are you managing what are you managing right now as far as your family's work?
Well,
I mean, I don't want to get into legal complications or anything like that,
but there really aren't. I spent the first months negotiating a deal with the Bauhaus Dessau to take care of my collection, because I had a big old house in the country and had everything around me, and that doesn't happen here. Mm-hmm. Certainly not yet. So that took some months, and then inputting it into the archive, inventory and condition reports and so on. Mm-hmm. We made a deal where with 3 months' notice I can have anything back that I want, and I'm forming relationships with museums around the country, and eventually I think they're going to start being Feininger exhibits.
Yeah.
To some extent, this has been hampered by Corona, and it's also the change of leadership. The first exhibit we always said was going to be here because they are the caretakers of the work, and the first exhibit probably won't be until next year, late in the year. There'll be little tiny things before then. Mm-hmm. But this is a long-term project for me, and I am determined to make my father more famous.
So you want to to show the world your father's artwork.
Yes.
And that's what he wanted as well.
Yeah, but not enough to take gallery representation, to use his name, to push himself forward in any way. He didn't really need to. Not only was he teaching himself, but only 2 days a week. But he could rely on my grandfather's sales of his stuff to finance the family.
Okay.
And that was sort of the business model that I grew up with.
So everything that you everything that was taken from Germany when they left in 1937, and everything you got from Quedlinburg, that's your inventory.
Yeah, you could say that.
And then now your father's work has been added to that.
Sure.
And so you've got. You're managing this, or
the responsibility
you
of
have
management
brothers
has been lifted from my shoulders.
Okay.
There are, I think, 1,344 pieces in the archive of the Bauhaus, in the old brewery.
Okay.
And they are caretakers for it, but I still have the right to do with it what I will.
Okay. So it's over there.
Mm-hmm.
In a air-conditioned room, sealed, all that kind of stuff.
It's a very cool space.
Okay. Is that open for public?
No.
Okay, so it's a storage unit, basically.
Yeah, but it's like 5 floors of a commercial brewery.
Did you bring all of that stuff over last year when you came?
Yeah, when I came, it was shipped by a moving company called Hertling, who specialize in transatlantic work and also in art.
So did you find that space, or did you contact?
I had hopes that this would work the way it did.
But the brewery stuff is...
The brewery stuff is quite protected.
Good.
Big security.
Okay.
And part of that building is open to the public. That Bauhaus thing they do in the summertime was over there when I first got here.
Okay.
But no, the average person can't get in to see this stuff.
Okay.
Only by appointment.
So if somebody wants to... If some museum around the world wants to display it, they contact you.
Yeah, and I contact my friends at the Bauhaus Museum, and with 3 months' notice, anything can go wherever it needs to go.
Okay. And then if 3 months you want it back, you get it back. That's the contract.
Yeah, if I say next week that I'm unhappy and want it all, 3 months later it would all come to me.
Okay.
But I hope we have a positive and productive relationship.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the idea is to celebrate.
Yes.
Well, dude, I'm sure every museum in every European city is going to be like, if they're not already contacting you, they're like, okay, look, we got to find this guy.
Yeah, so far the word isn't out except in casual conversation.
Okay.
And I keep getting involved with little things, like, the naming of the gymnasium in Halle.
Yeah.
And so on.
What's special?
Yeah.
I mean, do you like to do those little small gigs?
Well, I am actually a very shy person. I like forcing myself to say 5 or 6 sentences in German that I read off a page.
Yeah.
I like the atmosphere at that school, especially. But I'm happiest when I'm talking about the other people in my family, not about myself.
Okay. You're humble.
Modest.
About that particular. Okay, modest is a better adjective.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I am also one of the vainest people you'll meet, too. I am very proud of the work that I've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
As Shakespeare said in Henry V, if it be a sin to covet honor, I am the most offending soul alive. But I don't say, and when I did Hamlet, I defined the way the role will be played for the rest of the world.
Yeah. How many times did you do Hamlet?
Only once.
Okay.
But I did it before I was 30.
Okay.
And that was a good experience. For Shakespeare, I've also played Macbeth, and that was a lot harder.
Yeah.
The fights.
Can we talk a little bit about what brought you here?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then...
It's no secret.
Yeah. And then we...
Yeah. I don't like social media.
Uh-huh.
My fiance is teaching me to use Instagram as a tool.
Okay.
But we met through Facebook. And at the time, I was being tugged towards Germany, partly because I wanted out of America.
Uh-huh.
I it's not America anymore. Even with this new administration, it's not America anymore. And I discovered at age 62 what real love is.
Yeah.
And so I first came surreptitiously, but then by the second visit, I realized that we were not going to live in the shadows. We were going to live in the sunshine and become honest people. She was in the process of a divorce herself, but I came back and settled my affairs in the United States and came over here.
So everything is finished in the States.
Yeah. Sold my house, was divorced the first week in January, and have no ties. I'm still a full U.S. citizen. Mm-hmm. And, my first wife and I were a good team, and we were very good friends. And I regret having caused her hurt because she thought we were all set for the rest of our lives. But my biggest sadness is that I lost my dogs.
Okay.
We both agreed that they shouldn't fly on a plane, and I didn't know that there were airlines that fly pets in the cabin.
Yeah, of course they do.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
We thought it was, in the hold kind of situation.
No.
But it's also...
I mean, certain airlines do, but certain airlines don't. What kind of dogs?
Labradors, both.
Oh.
Yeah.
You could have split 1 and 1.
Yeah, no. And I am resigned to that, and I'm mercifully blocked on Facebook by Kathy, the first wife, so I don't see them. She posts pictures of them all the time, and they are out of sight, but they're not out of mind. And when we have a bigger living situation, Marie Louisa and I, first priority is to get a dog.
Get a dog. Get a golden? Get a golden?
No, smaller now.
Okay.
Some kind of a terrier, probably.
Okay.
Maybe a schnauzie. But yeah, I'm too old to be dragged around by big dogs. And space requirements are smaller in this country.
What can you learn from... Okay, you've lived here in Dessau for, 9 months?
9 months and a few weeks before that.
So you're coming in at 62. You visited this country before. You know how much it means to your family. Like, what can you be taught here by Germany? As far as like personality, character, the way things are done differently, like
respect for professionalism.
Okay.
Would be the first that I say. I watch what this country is going through trying to set up a new government, and it is completely mysterious to me. I mean, this guy won the election, so why isn't he blah, blah, blah? But the way these discussions are conducted, there is a respect for the political class. And I would have said until I really got here that there's generally respect for order, which I appreciate. Nobody is jaywalking across the street. They're waiting for the light. Now, to some of that is destroyed by people like Lupin. The graffiti in this country is amazing to me, and not in a positive way. I don't understand. Okay. And I keep waiting for them to destroy these pieces over by the Bauhaus. But in general, there is an order to this country that people don't cut in line, and if they do, then other people say, hey. I can't tell you the number of times that Marie Louisa has dropped what we are doing to help a child on the street, who's being harassed and picked on or has fallen off their bicycle. Okay. And in America...
Yeah, put the blinders on.
Yeah, complete. And I appreciate that. Yeah. As to the rest of it, my personal life is so blissful that it could be the worst place in the world to live, and I would still be happy.
Okay. That's a nice statement. It could be the worst place to live in the world. And I was so.
Our first apartment in Myanmar, you know?
Yeah. I mean, where's all this youthfulness coming from and the identity of these warm, fuzzy feelings of love at 62? Like, where? I mean, is it?
When I sought counseling and all of the process of this change, the image that I could come up with is that I had been living like a leaf floating in the current of a river, going where external forces took me,
Right.
rather than where I wanted to be. And when I got the leaf to the shore and climbed out of the water, I realized that no matter how late in life it is, and she's older than I am, love had been missing, and it wasn't to say that I didn't tell my first wife that I loved her. But we were a team, not a couple, and had enough resources and good luck in life to have this go on to the last day of our life. And I made a sort of half-hearted attempt to change by allowing the move to Westport, to the summer house, where I knew I was going to divorce myself from acting, because a regional theater career is very safe, but it's nothing once you leave the region.
Right.
My credits mean nothing in Boston, and nothing in New York, and nothing in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And the idea of starting over again at 55 when we moved was repulsive to me.
Okay.
The struggle I had to get my foot in the door, that's a young man's game.
Okay.
So I knew I was making a big change.
How does your partner feel about walking into this biography?
She's still somewhat starstruck by it because she was a big Feininger fan. And as a resident of Dessau, used the resources to know what it means. It was at Bauhaus events and so on and so forth. Also was a librarian, so had access to books that other people don't. She is more protective of the name than I am, and I had to beg my first wife to take my name, and she has, since we divorced, gone back to her maiden name. Marie Louisa is happy to be a Feininger, and that's not a reason to marry somebody,
Right.
But she understands and is also fully on board with this work on my father. My own personal efforts so far are largely limited to Insta, but I encourage you to go to T-Lux Feininger on Insta and see these paintings.
I mean, now that we've met, and I just know just a little bit about your story. Like, it's gratifying, it really is. And I'm glad that, either it was Ilka or John or Kirsten or somebody here said like, hey, like, let's talk to this guy, because I'm a fish out of water when it comes to these kinds of topics.
But, by the same token, I see myself as a refugee from Trump, just like a refugee is fleeing Lebanon or Syria or whatever. But this is not how I am seen. I promised the city of Dessau I would never take a penny from the government, which is...
I mean, this is interesting. We talked about this, like, okay, so why was it difficult for you to immigrate to Germany? Is this just your age?
I don't know. When we did this, I was in a panic because I had to go back to sell my house. I got divorced over Zoom after I got back, but I had to sell my house.
A Zoom divorce.
A Zoom divorce.
That's pretty cool. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
But there was no guarantee I was going to be able to come back. You know, the travel with the COVID was awful.
Right.
You know, and I got friends of mine to involve high-level government people, and the way I came back was as Marie Louise's guest, but was shaking hands and all these papers from here, there, and everywhere. I get here and there was nobody at the immigration booth at the airport, so I just walked into the country. But that's another story. You know, look at these papers. I worked hard to get them. You're on lunch?
But they're stamped now, right? Just in case.
I am safe until November of 2022.
Okay, perfect.
But then it starts over again.
Okay.
But you know, when we covered health insurance in the course book, all the other people in class have the same card that my wife-to-be has of health insurance. Right. And I have this little piece of cardboard that I haven't dared to use and probably would only bring out and I'm the only one who is signing his separate piece of paper because I'm paying for this myself, which maybe makes me work harder at it.
Yeah.
But I am not averse to a leg up, and I have people beginning to work for me in Halle. I know it's going to be difficult because of my age to become a citizen. There are rules about that.
What does marriage guarantee you to a citizen?
We're not quite sure about that. I don't know that it guarantees me anything.
Okay.
And I don't marry for that reason.
Right.
I am much more interested in using my grandmother's Jewish identity and the political consequences of Lionel's art to say I have the right to return.
Right.
Even though it's sticky because Lionel was an American citizen all the time he lived here. He was never German.
I would see the state making an exemption because
of
the historical significance of your grandfather.
And the politicians I have met so far have been helpful, if not useful.
Right.
Hasselhoff helped finally shake the last pieces from Quedlinburg.
Okay.
And I met him through a woman in Halle who runs the Stiftung, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
But I hope to involve more political people and maybe to get a lawyer and maybe the story is interesting enough that they do make an exception. I can become some kind of cultural resource. Feininger returns to Germany.
Yes.
But I can't promise myself that that's going to work.
I mean, I can see that's the name of your one-man play right now.
Yeah. I'm back.
I mean, once the dust settles and everything is sort of in place.
And I can begin to communicate in the language of the country in which I live.
Are you going to keep pursuing,
I'm certainly within lingua through May. David is an excellent teacher. But as I said the other day, grammar is going to kill me because it killed me when I was studying English, as a kid. There was this experiment where a Venusian came down to Earth and learned English. It was a complete waste of time. The closest to learning grammar I came, I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, Sniglets for road trips where there'd be a ridiculous story and you'd say, give me an adverb, give me an adjective, and then you read the story that comes out of that. That's as close as I get.
Interesting. Any plans to continue? Again, you were talking about this book and this book and this book. Are you also compiling something for publication, or is you just want to enjoy your time? Here.
And
if called upon, if you accept those invitations, then I'll gladly endorse whatever. But the goal here now is to promote your father's art.
Yes.
Okay.
And if anyone asks, I would be happy to act again, but I'm not looking for it.
Well, the theater, the history of the theater here in Dessau.
Yes. And I like the theater here in Dessau.
Hitler loved his theater.
I know. Yeah, I know. I've seen that documentary.
It's no knock on the theater. It's a beautiful theater.
No, and Dessau was a much livelier place then, with more industry and so on than it has now.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, thank you so much, man. Seriously,
I'm happy to do it. This is the most English that I've managed to speak in months. It's very comforting.
Well, you haven't forgotten it.
No, and I don't think I ever will.
No, but thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully, hopefully, like we'll see each other again. Hopefully,
I think
hope
so.
Yeah.
If nothing else, this expedition to Halle. But
no, I mean, we can see each other if you want to. Like, I'm in town.
Yeah, and me too. Marie Louisa and I are still in the early days of obsession with each other. But it isn't to say that one can't meet, and I'm not a prisoner. It's by desire.
Are you here over the Christmas holidays? You
Yes.
said you're doing something at the Bauhaus Museum.
In around the 16th or so of December. We have no plans unless somebody invites us somewhere.
Okay.
And there are a couple of people who might invite us to the Baltic, which we both love and like to. And having time from school, I don't like to miss.
Yeah, of course.
But I missed 3 days last week and was completely confused yesterday in class, and really happy it was canceled for today.
Yeah, it's a good day to catch up on the studying from last week. But well, then I will look forward to seeing you in school, and I will look forward to seeing you out and about.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go and get a beer or whatever.
That sounds great. Let's plan on it.
Excellent. You've made this very easy. I appreciate it.
No, dude, thanks again.
It's my pleasure. And I'm always happy to talk about my family.